We often ask ourselves, what's the actual secret to a child's emotional stability? In a world that literally feels like it's spinning faster every single day, what is that one anchor keeping kids grounded?
Well, listen to this quote from a teenager in a major University of Hertfordshire study. They simply said, "I would never have made it without my grandparents." Wow, that's a pretty profound, incredibly raw thing to say, right? It just strips away all the complex psychological theories and points straight to a fundamental human connection.
So, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer, Anchors in the Storm. Today, we're going to unpack the absolutely vital, yet honestly, totally underappreciated role that grandparents play in a child's life. We're looking at some rich academic data and really moving case studies to understand exactly how this generational bond creates a bedrock of emotional stability. Here is what we're covering today. First, the gotta-run generation. 2, the uncritical significant adult. 3, mentor versus the confidant. 4, navigating family life transitions. And finally, the wisdom of patience. All right, part 1, the gotta-run generation, the macro context. To really get the role of grandparents today, we kind of have to look at the sheer chaos of the modern family. Listen to this quote from a recent study on the wisdom of aging. "I'm in such a rush this weekend." Doesn't that just hit the nail on the head? Working parents today are constantly juggling careers, logistics, never-ending to-do lists. Their lives are completely dictated by schedules. Time is literally their scarcest resource. And into that frantic, time-starved gap steps the grandparent. In fact, a whopping 60% of childcare is provided by grandparents. 60%! That's a massive infrastructural pillar of modern society right there. We aren't just talking about occasional Sunday visits. They're actively co-parenting, doing the school runs, and babysitting so parents can actually work or, just take a breath. There's an actual drawing from a child in the Hertfordshire study that shows their grandparents holding tennis rackets. I love this because it perfectly captures how they aren't just passive babysitters sitting on the couch. They are active playmates. They're deeply embedded in the everyday fun and the actual routine of the kid's life. It's a bond that goes way, way beyond just keeping an eye on them.
Moving on to Section 2, the uncritical significant adult, the anchor.
So beyond the practical childcare stuff, what's the actual psychological function here? It really comes down to this concept, the uncritical significant adult. Researchers found that kids desperately need and deeply value adults who aren't constantly evaluating or disciplining them. Grandparents naturally fill that exact role. They relax the normal rules, maybe bedtime slides a bit, or they sneak them an extra cookie. And by doing that, they create this incredibly calm, safe bubble where a kid feels 100% accepted, just exactly as they are. Because think about it, parents absolutely have to be the bad guy sometimes. They have to enforce homework and chores and the basic structure required to, raise a functional human being. It's a tough, exhausting job. Grandparents, on the other hand, are freed from that primary responsibility. Since they don't have to be the ultimate rule enforcers, they get to be the non-judgmental listeners. They offer gentle counsel instead of, laying down the law. Which brings us to Section 3, mentor versus the confidant, the tightrope. Now, grandparents aren't just a free pass for bad behavior, right? They actually walk this really delicate, brilliant tightrope between two very distinct roles, the confidant and the mentor. As a confidant, they're a safe harbor. Research shows kids often find it way easier to talk to their grandparents about the heavy stuff, like bullying, fears, teenage drama, mostly because they know the grandparent won't overreact the way a stressed-out parent might. But at the exact same time, as a mentor, they're quietly imparting a strong work ethic, modeling morals, and teaching life skills. Doing both of those things, listening without judgment while still guiding a child's character, is just an absolute masterclass in relationship building. And this dynamic is incredibly multifaceted. A study by Civitas actually mapped out all these roles happening simultaneously. Playmate, teacher, counselor, confidant, friend, spiritual guide, mentor, elder, role model, nurturer. 1 minute they're a playmate just goofing around, the next they're the family historian, and then a spiritual guide helping a kid make sense of the world. They're literally the ultimate multi-tool in a child's development. But here's the really crucial thing to understand. This is not a one-way street, not at all. Academic research on intergenerational learning defines this as a highly inclusive, reciprocal process. It's never just the elder lecturing the youth. Sure, the grandparent passes down experience and values, but the grandchild brings totally new information, maybe some much-needed tech support and entirely fresh perspectives to the elder. It's a genuine exchange that deeply enriches both generations. Just picture it, sitting together, reading a book. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But quiet, totally unstructured moments exactly like this are where profound intergenerational learning actually happens. It's where the trust is built, allowing the grandparent to be both that guiding mentor and that completely safe confidant we just talked about.
All right, Section 4, Navigating Family Life Transitions, the Crucible.
So everything we've discussed so far, especially that mentor-confidant balance, becomes exponentially more critical when a family faces major upheavals like divorce or separation. The data shows that 20% of grandparents in the study experienced a family breakdown that directly affected their grandchildren. It's a devastatingly common thing. But the incredible news from this research is that within that affected group, a massive 80% of grandparents successfully maintained contact and continued providing vital emotional support to the child.
Listen to the words from this case study. We supported our grandchildren during the hard times by being available, providing a stable environment, and just listening to their everyday situations. This is that confident role in full action. When the parent's world is collapsing, the grandparent steps up to become the unmoving rock. They offer this safe space where the child gets to just be a kid who is loved, and by holding that calm environment together, they're simultaneously sustaining their role as a mentor, securely guiding the child right through the emotional turbulence of the transition.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the wisdom of patience, the secret ingredient.
So how exactly do grandparents manage to be this incredibly calm, supportive anchor? Well, it honestly all comes down to time. Remember that stressed-out parent from the beginning who is in such a rush? Contrast that frantic energy with this realization from an older adult in a group therapy session. Well, maybe it is true that we older people don't need to rush so much. It's so true. Grandparents are no longer running that frantic race of midlife career building and active day-to-day parenting.
They've officially retired from the gotta-run generation. And because their lives aren't being dictated by a ticking clock anymore, patience becomes their absolute superpower, their ultimate currency. They can sit peacefully. They can listen to a kid's long, totally rambling story without instantly checking their phone or stressing about the next chore. That gift of undivided attention, which really comes from the wisdom of patience, is exactly what makes them such incredibly effective confidants and mentors.
So, the grandparent-grandchild bond? It isn't just some nice, cozy family dynamic. It is an absolutely essential mechanism for passing down resilience, skills, and pure unconditional love. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this question. In your own life and in your own relationships, are you savoring the journey or are you just running the race? Take a second to really think about that. And hey, maybe we could all take a page out of a grandparent's book today.